Welcome to Beyond the Frontline podcast, where your host, U.S. Air Force veteran Donna Hoffmeyer, will help you transition from the front line to the home front. Listen every other Wednesday as we'll bring great conversations, resources, tips, and feel-good stories that will resonate and relate. Now, here's your host, Donna Hoffmeyer.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Front Line. This is part 2 of our conversation with Tony Crescenzo. If you haven't listened to part 1, we highly encourage you go over to part 1 and listen to that first. It will make a lot more sense. But just as a quick summary, Tony Crescenzo is the founder of Peak Neuro. It's a neuroscience plus AI human performance company, and it focuses on enhancing cognitive performance, sleep, recovery, and resilience, and on helping the individuals operate better under pressure. So we're going to continue this conversation. But again, if you haven't listened to part 1, head on over there first. So we're talking about veterans and first responders. And when we're talking about first responders, we're talking about veteran first responders, right? We're talking about people that are away from their service now. What about those that are in service? And I'm going to tell you, I got challenged with this and I am blanking out on his name right now. He was a neuroscientist from Columbia. His PR person reached out to me. We were supposed to do a podcast. And then they called me and said, Donna, he got called to NATO. He can't be there. And I went, oh, definitely more important than me. You have at it. And we never, ever got to kind of get back together. But I did do a pre-meet with him. And he said to me, he was civilian. He had never been in the military. And he looked at me and big brain, right? But let me tell you, this was the most sincere question. He said to me and said, Donna, how come the military does not do more resiliency work with the service members? We have all this stuff that's going on outside of the military, like, oh, we got to heal them, we got to do this. He's like, and the reality of their jobs to whatever in a better state, so they're more resilient, so they don't have as many issues or minimal issues when they're coming out of service. Why does the military not do that? And I'm like, I do not have that answer. I mean, I have a lot of answers, but they're all sassy, sarcastic, and probably not productive. So what do you guys do? Do you do that? Is that something you're looking at? Is that an option or is it a no-go?
That is the absolute reason why we exist. And it is as aggravating as you can imagine trying to get attention from people about that specific issue. And let me take that up to 100,000 feet for you.
Please.
Our military, our Department of Defense, our national defense strategy is all around a fight in the Indo-PACOM area, China and Russia. China and Russia are our two most obvious potential adversaries. Either we're fighting across vast distances, big oceans with little islands, or we're fighting in Eastern Europe in World War II again. Mm-hmm. Those are the two scenarios that we look at most. And when we think about how we fight wars, we always talk about domains. And a domain is air, sea, land, space, and cyber. Those are the declared domains that we think about when we put our joint warfighting doctrine together. But there's a sixth domain. And let me explain what it is. And if you have Netflix, you can watch a movie about it called House of Dynamite.
Ooh, writing that down.
Real popular on Netflix now. It's a scenario, it's a fictional account where a hypersonic missile is launched from the ocean, and it's about our response to that missile launch and how our entire system breaks down. So let me tell you why this is so important. The difference between the way we fight wars and how our adversaries fight wars, in particular China, is that we give a shit about people. You're an Air Force veteran. If you're listening to this, you're not familiar with what a kill chain is. A kill chain is what happens between when someone says, I want to put ordnance on that person, and we actually pull the trigger. In our kill chain, we're required to have a person in that kill chain. And that slows us down because China doesn't care about that. They have developed a doctrine called intelligized warfare that operates in the cognitive domain. It operates on two planes. One is a commander's ability to perceive the battle space. What does the battle space look like? And if my battle space is the entire Pacific, how am I getting information? Well, I'm getting it from sensors, electromagnetic spectrum, RF, radio frequency, satellite communications. And so China's goal is to disrupt and inject chaos into that system. cyber attacking secure networks. You've seen scenarios in the news now where a Chinese warship brushes up against a Philippine cargo ship or a Philippine Coast Guard ship. And you know what they're doing there? They're not just doing intimidation exercises. They're lighting up their ELINT and SIGINT technology. And they're waiting to see what the encrypted burst of transmission looks like and where it comes from. Because now I know when I do this and that signal comes from over there, that and two F-35 show up, that signal from that location means aircraft are coming somewhere. And they're building
critical
like
information, right? They're putting it together.
The first part, bank robber would want to know the response times for the police.
Yeah.
And that's the first part. So the first thing they want to do is blind a commander to what the hell's going on for real. And that's deep fakes and things you can put on the internet and fake news stories. That's all part of that.
Yeah.
And the second part of it is interrupting, and you're Air Force, right? So OODA loop, observe, orient.
Oh, goodness. You're bringing out some stuff. OODA loop, yeah.
So China's goal is interrupt, observe, and orient, take away my ability to see the battlefield. And in doing so, now I can create multiple cognitive simultaneous challenges in the commander's mind that will interrupt his ability to decide and act. And that gets inside of our OODA loop. That's their whole goal.
Right.
So what do you do there, right? The issue there is how do we create resilience, not just in the commander's mind, but let's talk about commanders for a minute, at every level: battalion, squadron, wing, group, regiment, division, corps. All of those, every one of those commanders is operating on little or no sleep with an operational tempo that would kill most people.
Yep.
And our goal when we fight wars is to interrupt our adversaries' decision cycles. Theirs is to interrupt ours. So building resilience into that cycle is an operational necessity that the government and the Department of Defense is just now starting to recognize. And part of the problem is we have a million ways to tell you how fucked up you are, but we have very few ways to get you back on track.
Yeah.
And this is the challenge, right? It's not just, can I do it? Because you've taken neurofeedback, right? I got to go to a location. I've got to sit there. I got to be in front of a computer. It's labor intensive. It's economically challenging. It's hard to scale. So Peak Neuro was invented and created to create that scale. We can deliver to the individual entrainment technology that's specific to their neurology. Here, the other problem is one size doesn't fit all. Every brain is different. It's as different as your looks. And by the way, your looks change over time, and so does your brain. So what works for you this month, 3 months from now, might still work a little bit, but your brain is going to get to a different place. And so we've got to be able to meet people where they are and do it at scale. And that's where Peak Neuro really hits that, both in scalability and the time it takes to actually see measurable results. And there's the key word, is measurable. There's an awful lot of people who will tell you how great you're going to feel. And it's one thing to feel great. It's another thing altogether to actually be metabolically efficient, healthy, sleeping well.
Yeah.
You talked about SMR and which is basically our ability. It's our sensory motor system.
Right.
It's our ability to downshift and stabilize against things like hyperarousal. We need to be able to do that in real time. You can't give it to somebody, send them off to combat, and have them come back and go, "Oh shit, sorry you're fucked up. We'll fix you now." When we create resilience, we prevent it.
Right
we
there.
Create a situation
that's the
where,
thing. It's a whole new level, preventative, which the military does not understand preventative. I mean, they don't, and I'm not trying to jab at them. That's just what it is. It's like, oh yeah, to get them to understand, like, hey, you get to have them longer. Because the reality of this is that our job is to perform, right? Our job in the military, whether we like it or not, the military is not set up to put the Band-Aid on the wound. I mean, they're going to put that same Band-Aid, whether it's a little cut or it's a freaking gaping wound, you're getting the same Band-Aid because they are not built that way, whether we like it or not. Yeah. And because of that, more people are coming out of the military struggling where they could have just had a little cut. They're coming out with gaping wounds, right? And that Sam Band-Aid is not working. And so I'm like, but what if we had something that would just keep things to just a surface cut, that they can heal from really quick? You get to keep them longer. They are, it's not that they're not getting it. It's just that they're not making it across the board because where they're getting it. Like, you're working with special forces, that's where all that stuff's going into because those are $1 million people and probably more than that now that they're investing into, and it's going to start there. It's always going to start there. Right.
You know, the irony of that is
What?
most of the people that we work with, most of our clients and subjects are former special forces operators
Bet your
who
ass
are
they
still
are.
struggling, still
Yep.
struggling.
Bet your butt.
That's kind of the you know I love the way you brought that up. We exercise our muscles. I mean, every day I spent in the Marine Corps, I ran, I PT'd. That's part of the duty day. You are literally doing something every day. You're working out. You're building your cardiovascular endurance. You're building a much higher capacity to deal with physical stress.
Yeah.
And we don't work out the ability to deal with emotional and mental stress. Just the stress of being away from home. I mean, it's
Yeah.
kind of it's a cautionary tale for, you send a platoon of Marines overseas and half of them are coming back to a wife that's left them or a
Yep.
husband that's left them
Yep.
or a car that got repossessed or bad enough you got to come back from all the shit you're in, but now you've lost them. Of course, when you get out, you lose your identity, you lose your tribe,
Yep.
you
Value,
lose who you
purpose.
are. Yeah, and what's the number one indication of veteran suicide? Poor transition.
I mean,
And
we're
we have poor transitions because we don't need you anymore.
look what just happened recently. I mean, we just had the second one in San Antonio, right? We just had
Yeah.
it, and people are inflamed, and they're just like, make it stop. And so, yet, we have like, oh, more therapists and this and that, and I'm like, folks, I mean, this has like been my soapbox forever. There is other ways. And so when the Columbia, neuroscientist says to me, Donna, why doesn't the military want to make you more resilient before you go there? So your special forces are coming out, because I'll put money, I'm taking a wild stab at this, that there is some neurofeedback stuff that's going on there and neuroscience stuff, but it's not consistent. It's not preventative.
one-off.
It's
Yeah.
going on while
Yeah.
they're there. Or,
Yeah.
it's not, who knows what the protocol is and how it's being applied and everything else, right? Good attempt. I mean, please. I mean, I'm glad that's yes to have somewhere, but we can do this better. And in my little head, it's not necessarily that complicated. Like, you just got to get in there and be willing to try this and be willing to do this. Like, why do we have to start on the back end? Why can't we finish up on the back end? Like, okay, it was a game changer for me, because I was able to go. I was still in the military when this was happening. I was getting it on the outside. When I was doing this, I was able to now get into these meetings that my meetings were always tense, because it was always dealing with somebody's life, right? So it was always a battle somewhere. And I never realized that I was having physical reactions. I was sweaty palms, churny stomach, adrenaline dumping, which for me was in the form of talking. And I would spend 20, 30 minutes. I did not know that all my chatter was my body trying to dump the adrenaline, right? And so I would talk about it there, I'd talk about it at home. And after I had neuro, my husband's just like, is there anything going on at work? I'm like, oh, yeah. He's
Yeah,
like,
what are you mad at me? Because you're
you're
not
never
talking
talking. Like, because I got to a point that I talked so much, I didn't have a solution. And then I'm so sick of hearing myself. There's no solution here. Just shut up. But not in a healthy way, right? So when the neurofeedback came in for me, and my body, as you said, efficiently working now, and it could actually dump the adrenaline appropriately, I wasn't having that response. And it's later, not, God, let's go grab a coffee and talk about this. I did not know that those were all reactions, right? So let me just make sure I'm clear, because I'm sure everybody's like, holy cow, what in the world did just happen now? We had this huge conversation about the brain, entrainment, not
We don't want to
entrapment. I
entrap
know,
anybody.
not entrap. I'm like, that's not the right word. Entrainment. I knew I was
would be
going to
bad.
say it too. I was saying it carefully. I'm like, I'm saying it wrong. But entrainment, when we're talking that, versus the neurofeedback, I just want people to understand that they are doing something that is very specific for a very specific population, right? It's and more efficiently. You're getting more efficient. You can do this in less time. You can have the lasting results in less time. And again, Tony, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but what I was understanding and what has been told in conversation when I've had these discussions, that when the brain is put into these more optimal regulations, the brain actually wants to stay in it. And the reason why I say this to you guys is that when you have this done, you don't have to have every single week for the rest of your life, like taking a pill. The brain is going to try to optimally function. So I'm going to let you talk to that and correct me where I'm off on that. But go
No,
ahead.
you're not really off at all. I think when especially when you think about pharmacological intervention, even psychedelic therapy,
Correct.
that's treating a symptom, and you're creating a
Correct.
temporary condition that feels good. It's phenomenologically nice for someone who subjectively relaxes. You take a Valium. My wife would never take drugs. Got a Valium for getting some eye surgery, and she thought it was the coolest experience of her life. She sat there like a zombie for 2 hours staring at a poster of Hawaii. It was just awesome, right? But then it wears off, and you got a little bit of a hangover, and you got brain
Yeah.
fog because it's all of that stuff. Um, the 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 challenge is when we do these interventions, and they're episodic, they're short-term interventions, whether it's a pharmacological or endothelial, or we're using binaural beats, which is from the 1800s. If you're not familiar with that, some of these relaxation
It's
technologies.
popular
What
now.
Yeah, it's super popular.
Yeah,
And it works because it feels good and it
it
works great right up
does.
until it's over. And then your brain goes right
Right
back.
back. Right.
So so how a lot of these things work is what's called frequency following response, which just works for the length of the time you do it. There's a lot of research done at the University of Arizona around this. We just presented a paper at the conference on consciousness, the University of Arizona's annual conference last year internationally in Barcelona about this. And what we want to focus on is not a state level change. That is, for the next half hour, I'm going to feel good. Is we want to move your baseline neurophysiology to the most efficient, optimized place for you as an individual, not some random thing that we pick and say, let's put you there. Because once you're in that space that is modally ideal for you, it becomes something that is now your new normal. We're not you're not sitting in one thing and then changing to another and flopping back. It's not a rubber band that keeps going backwards. What we're doing is just like when before you had the trauma, you were in one place. Then you have the trauma and you're stuck in that trauma until you overcome it, and then you go to a different place. You can pick the place you want to go to, whether that's a state of equanimity, whether that's focus, whether it's sleep. These are all states that we can control. We just need a little help doing it. It's a lot. When you think about neurofeedback, neurofeedback is great because you've got a lot of coaching and it's active while you're doing it. And we're a lot more passive. You literally, what we do is we take a baseline snapshot, or if you have one, we can work off of that. And we'll literally analyze that EEG or that QEEG,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll look at the data, and because it's all AI based and it's built out of hundreds of years of experience and tens of millions of pages of research,
Right.
we're able to prescribe, if you will, a protocol to move that oscillatory rhythm of your brain from wherever it is to wherever it could or should be. So if you're having a hard time sleeping, we have a technology. You play it on your cell phone. You don't even need headphones to listen to it for sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, kind of interesting thing. I have a monthly town hall with my employees at Intelligent Waves, and it's just an open door. You want to come in and ask questions. And Peak Neuro is a separate company, and our Intelligent Waves employees wanted to know, can we use this? Right? Can we get access to it? Because we have a lot of stress, and you know, that's a hole in my awareness. I was like, oh, absolutely. And
Yeah, like
sure
of
enough,
course.
yeah, sure enough, 2 days later, one of our employees sent me a note in Teams and said, "Boy, my mom's going into hospice, and I'm taking all these drugs to go to sleep, and they're not working. Is there anything there you can help us with?" Literally. So yes, let me put this, and literally, I can send it to your phone in minutes. So as your brain changes, we can change with you. And of course, 2 days later, she sends me a text and says, "Hey, I really appreciate that worked, and I haven't slept this good in years." And I talked earlier before I think we started the podcast about a retired SEAL team member that we worked
Yes.
with for a couple of months. And it's one thing to say it's great that he feels better, but how do you really measure success in that category? Well, for him, it's you can look now at an EEG and know he's completely normal for his cohort, right? For his 54-year-old, college educated, post military career, he is at or above what we would think of as a
Well,
normative EEG.
give
But,
context to
but
that. Give context to what the ooh on why, like when you say that, I'm sitting there going, yeah, how many TBIs did he have?
21,
Right. I'm like
21,
21 plus
21.
lost family members, like had external traumas plus physical traumas. I mean, that's enough to make anybody just curl up, put their thumb in their mouth, and call it good from what's happened
Now,
to him. It was exceptional level trauma.
I can look at an EEG. We've done this with NFL players as well who've suffered multiple concussions in their
Right.
career. A normal EEG. But you know what was better than the EEG is that was it 2 Thursdays ago, Thanksgiving. At 7 o'clock at night, I'm sitting with my family having dinner, and I look down and I have a text from his girlfriend. Hey, just want to let you know we're both thankful for you.
Yeah.
That's changing people's lives.
So do you
And you're,
think, you know what Spark is? You know Spark?
yeah, sure, yeah,
So I work with them, like with my nonprofit, I work with some of them.
yeah,
And they've come and spoke at some of my things. And so for the audience, Spark is the outreach for the DoD's initiative for brain health, right? It's
right.
so we want to understand, what happens to the brain. And the kind of the rule of thumb, so to speak, is you cannot diagnose CTE, which is, what does it stand for? I can never remember. Se-
Chronic
tra-
encephalo.
traumatic
Uh,
encephalo, blah, blah.
yeah. The problem with CTE is you can't diagnose it until you're dead.
There you go. That's what I was getting at. You can't diagnose it
Yeah.
till you're dead. However, like everything, it it comes with symptoms, right? So when we're
Yeah.
in the medical world, what do we have? We have differential diagnosis. And how do we get to, and when I say differential diagnosis, I'm just going to make it up, 1 through 10. These are the 10 things that could be going on. We start in the order of most common all the way to the least common. So in a differential diagnosed CTE, it always be at the bottom because unless you can open up the brain and look at it, which you can't diagnose CTE, right? And so, however, it comes with symptoms. So if you've ruled out everything else and you're down at the bottom of it, I mean, in theory, are we not what you're doing, Tony, all this neuroscience work that we're doing, are we mitigating CTE? Are we becoming more preventative? Are we
Well,
healing it, fixing it without ever being able to officially diagnose it?
yeah. Let's talk about that for a minute. So, what is CTE really? It's a structural neurodegenerative condition,
Right.
and it comes from years of head trauma. It's getting hit in the head a lot,
Right.
which is true for contact sports players and Marines. You don't reverse the underlying damage. You can't. The damage is structural. It's a tau buildup, axonal injury, network degradation. You get these dysregulated oscillations in the brain, poor sleep, emotional
Right.
volatility, cognitive noise, all those things. What does it do? It disrupts neural timing. So you get weaker alpha rhythms, unstable theta, excessive high frequency noise in that aperiodic slope we talked about earlier. The background static gets so high, you just can't take it anymore. That's why we see a lot of suicide for people who have CTE. They can't turn off.
Sleep to
Yeah,
regenerate anything, so they can't sleep. They have impulse issues, anger
yeah.
outbursts, and
Yep.
the lack of sleep just
And
makes everything worse.
impulsivity,
Yeah.
emotional volatility, cognitive fog, sleep fragmentation, all those things. So, um, what it does is it maps down to that sort of poor hemispheric integration we talked about. It amplifies neuroinflammation, uh, all of those things. Now, when we create the coherence in the brain, when we create the interhemispheric synchrony, that regulation tamps down the inflammatory drivers. It improves the signal to noise ratio, that background noise that drives you crazy. And you may not necessarily reverse the damage that CTE does, but you can ameliorate the symptoms to the point where someone can live a normal life. The problem with CTE is you don't know until somebody shoots himself in the head that they
Right.
had CTE. But
However,
what
you
you can do is treat the symptoms.
right, and so when you say that, like, yeah, you hear these stories, right? Like Will Smith did a movie on it and whatnot, but they're symptoms, right? And then it seems
Mhm.
like up until this point, it was always looked back like, oh my God, the symptoms were there. And I think it's
Yeah.
happening enough that now we're like, hopefully getting on the front side going, oh, we know this, we've seen this. Let's intervene before we get to that point, whatnot, before the noise is too loud and they have no other choice, right?
Yeah, you really you can't reverse the structural damage, but you can improve the functional systems that get destabilized.
Right.
Sleep, timing, emotional regulation, neural coherence. When you stabilize those, your quality of life improves and the daily impact becomes a lot more manageable.
Imagine doing this with, we were talking about this before the podcast, doing
Yeah.
this with other modalities. And I say this, I'm talking about the neuroentrainment and neurofeedback. Imagine
Yeah.
doing this with hyperbarics, right? HPOT, where you're
Hmm.
hyperoxygenating that brain to help grow whatever you can, neural pathways, kept the healing, and then you're over here doing the training. And
Yeah.
like I had somebody like, we don't couple these modalities enough and show how we can, as the military says, right? You heard it, force multiplier, right? How we
Right.
make
Yep.
this better.
Hear it all the time.
But I had somebody like shoot me an email one day and they're like, Donna, did you see this? And it was, I think it was Marcus Luttrell testified in Congress about Ibogaine, right?
Yeah.
And Ibogaine, one and done. I took the Ibogaine. I did not have cravings for drugs, alcohol, whatever it is, right? I don't have those cravings anymore. And they're like, look at this, is amazing. And I said, it is. This is incredible. I go, imagine if you can use this with other modalities, because just because you stop the cravings doesn't mean you healed the trauma, right? So, but that is enormous, because when people are trying to do better and they're going, and so we'll just use talk therapy, not trying to bash the talk world. We love you, but we're just using it as an example. We use talk therapy. They're like, oh my God, I did all this. I feel horrible. I'm going to go drink, right? Throw
Yeah.
Ibogaine, great. That's one step, but I still feel like crap. I really don't want to go back and talk about that. Let's add in we'll do neuroentrainment here to help those pathways. Oh, and while we're doing that, we're going to also get you into HBOT and hyperbaric. So we're making that neuroentrainment work even better. And
Yeah.
now you're sleeping. And since now you're sleeping and you're regenerative, everything's starting to improve.
Yeah,
Right?
true. There's a colleague of mine, Sanjay Manchada. He has a device that's it's 1080 nanometer light. You wear it like a helmet, and it stimulates mitochondrial action in your brain.
Nice.
So not just the hyperbaric getting the oxygen in, but actually getting your mitochondria to absorb it, use it. In addition to the entrainment of the electrical signals, you're making the signals even stronger. Right? It's not one size fits all. It's
So,
not. There is no one silver bullet.
no. So when
Just
do we
like just
start the
like there's not one
clinic?
exercise you do.
When do we open
Where-
the clinic that has hyperbarics, neuroentrainment, that has, Ibogaine, blah, blah, blah. I mean,
yeah,
it really, they
it's
all
coming.
help each other out. All right, we're going to wrap. I could talk to you forever on this. Let me ask this question, because this is always the question. And I told you I was going to ask you before we started. How is this accessible to people? Is this accessible? How can people get their hands on it? Can
Yeah.
they?
So here's the good news. There's two things you can do. You can go to the App Store or to Google Play. It's available as Peak Neuro. Just search on Peak Neuro. It's an app. There's a free trial. You can use it for 30 days. Actually, you can use, I think, the free version forever. It's only got 4 exercises on it, but they're what we call our reference exercises. So when we do a protocol with an individual, we'll do a baseline, eyes open, eyes closed, and then a 30-minute entrainment that tells us how neuroplastic someone's brain is. It's kind of an inventory. And it's very interesting. It's an exercise called Let Go that's on there that it was essentially made for professional sports players who lose games and can't let go of that feeling, right? And what is, I think we before we released it, we had 20 test subjects. 19 of them, after the end of it, we asked, well, what's the one word to describe how you feel? And 19 out of 20 used the same word, which was clear.
Oh, wow.
So you can also go to peakneuro.com, which will have a lot of information about how the science works and what it is, and there'll be a link there to download the app. The full app has dozens of exercises on there that we classify into a number of different categories. If you're a sports person and you want flow focus and you want to exercise and you want to really get upregulated, we can do that. We have a 30-minute power nap, a 10-hour sleep protocol that we're talking about Columbia. There's a professor at Columbia who's from China, and she's always flying back and forth and never sleeps. And I know it works for her because her husband called me to say thank you for that. So
So the
there's
big brains are using it too, right? Like to keep going.
well, at the end of the day, it works. It works for any brain, and if it doesn't work, don't use it. But I would tell you, if you're a veteran, or if you are a veteran nonprofit and you're listening to this podcast and you want to make this available to veterans at no charge, come and talk to us because that's what we're about.
That's good. What's the cost right now just for the?
I can't even tell you I think the app is a free trial right now, and it might be like $50, but it's not. The exercises are in categories, so you sort of buy by the drink what the exercises you need are. And that's why we go back to if you're a veteran or a first responder, we don't want you to, and you can't afford it. We're not worried about that. We want to hear from you. And there, by the way, you can send us an email at studies, STUDIE at peakneuro.com. If you're interested in participating in a study, you have something you'd like us to look at, or if you have a discrete issue, in particular, if you're a veteran in crisis, first responder in crisis, you're suffering and you need help, don't worry about what it costs because it won't cost you a thing. You come and you send an email to that address, and we'll be in touch with you within 48 hours.
I'm going to give you a laundry list, right? Because I'm over here running a nonprofit.
I got to tell you, I mean, we talked earlier about the Navy SEALs, and Navy SEAL calls me and says, "Well, I got this Delta guy who I roomed with at a conference, and he needs it." And then that guy shows up, and then I've got the retired person from the CIA's Science and Technology Group whose husband was in a car accident and can't remember anything, and now he's in the program, and then people start bringing their spouses. So look, that's what it's about. Yeah.
So for the audience to understand, like when you bring them in, you actually monitor you're looking at their brain as you're doing this.
Yeah.
That's the difference, right? Versus the app where they're on headphones and you're doing some modulation.
The app is our way to make it available to everybody at scale. We will be, we talked a little bit earlier, we will be bundling with the app a set of headphones that have an EEG in it that will allow you remotely, wherever you are, to put on the headphones, take an inventory EEG, we'll pick that up through the app. Diagnose is the wrong word. We're a wellness app, not a medical app. That would be, I don't want to get into the trouble with the FDA on that, although we are applying for FDA clearance. We can pick that up and prescribe a protocol and create specific signals for you that can be delivered to that headset. Now, the headsets aren't available yet, but they will be in the first quarter of next year.
Oh.
Nice. And the headset costs about as much as a high-tech headset as this headset costs. It's about $300 or $400 for the headset. The app is separate from the headset. That's two companies working together, but it allows us to do a closed loop. As you progress, the signals change specifically for you over time. Mm-hmm. That part's probably not as accessible to most people as just doing the generic app, but there's dozens of exercises on that app, and they're classified into categories like trauma recovery, ADHD, PTSD, sleep, are all different components of the app, and they're all available at, like I said, at peakneuro.com and get the app, or go to the App Store or Google Play.
Well, it's a good place to start, right? You're at least trying to make it scalable, because like in general, neurofeedback itself is very unfortunate that I will say overall is not covered by insurance. There are specific situations where they will, if you are a psychiatrist or an MD, is my understanding that they let them get reimbursed. But otherwise, they do not. So there's a lot of good people that are doing this, and they will only allow them to do it. What's it, a 90901 code under biofeedback, which does not, it's like pennies on the dollar. They get no reimbursement. So essentially, I will say neurofeedback in general is really overall not covered by insurance.
So let me tell you one more thing, and that is we're working with. I spent 29 years in the VA, a psychiatrist up in Boston, putting together a clinical program that can be delivered not just by psychiatrists, but by EMDR therapists and psychotherapists and family systems therapists, so that they can deliver it in their office. We have as
Yes.
I said, we have an AI app that they can log on to, get the reports, work with clients in addition to psychotherapy or EMDR or whatever the modality is. That's a mid-year 2026 rollout.
I like that. But I want to know when you guys do that. Because this has been something that it drives me bonkers. It drives me absolutely bonkers that we can't have this easily accessible. I can't imagine a therapist around that would not want their information
Sure.
in the brain to be able
Yeah.
to move forward with therapy. I mean, who doesn't want that happening? You know, I don't know. I mean, I know people. I can hear it. Big pharma, and I'm like,
You know
well,
what? You must be reading my mind.
I
That's exactly what
know.
I was thinking.
And that's a real story. I get that too. But
Yeah.
I'm all like, well, if we don't keep trying and keep moving forward and make this so desired and wanted, nothing's going to change. Like when I was looking into this, and I was kind of connecting all the dots, and I'm like, we have got to get this covered. And, somebody in the field said to me, yes, he goes, you're going to hit a wall eventually because there's no constant cycle of pills. You can buy a device
Yeah.
and you can use the device. You can, it doesn't continue on. And things like neurofeedback and neuroentrainment are not a forever thing. You can have tune-ups. You can need a little bit here and there. You may be good for a long time. I had it
Yeah.
for approximately like a year, I think 8 months, years. Hey, I want to see where, like in the training, if it had changed anymore. Nope.
Yeah.
He's like, you're good. He's like, you're all,
Yeah.
he goes, we can go into peak performance. And I'm like, he goes, but you're really solid,
That's a state level change. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Now
a permanent change.
it's the new you.
Yeah. Yeah. Much calmer, much more.
Yeah.
Am I perfect? Hell no. I still got a squirrely brain. My friends still laugh at me and they're like, oh, Lord, here she goes. When the stress goes up, it gets squirrelier. I am not going to lie. That happens. But guess what? I'm aware and I can do measures to like, hey, calm it down. And I can feel the difference. I can feel when my brain goes squirrely.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
all like, oh, yeah, take that down. But I know what to do. I know when to back off. I don't want to feel like that. So I take measures, behavioral measures,
Yeah.
to bring it down,
That's important. Yeah.
Yeah. But I can. I can. My brain is not in a stuck state, right? It's the anterior, the poor posterior, I'm sure, is sending thank you messages to people like, God, thank God she was crazy. Like, go, 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 go. So, yeah, it's important. So, all right. Like I said, we could go on forever. I nerd out on these. If you ever go listen to the epigenetics one, I'm super embarrassed because I talked all through that. I was so excited by it. It just blows my mind to watch all this science and all the amazing things that we can do. And with the end result of what I was saying, all of our goals is to get the brain to keep the parasympathetic, sympathetic response regulated.
Amen to that.
And when that is, we're all the problem with it literally can tank them down and they can flatline at the bottom. And then we have what happened recently, right? And there isn't a veteran or a first responder around that I could go to and say, how many people do you know committed suicide? They're all going to name one at least. I across
Oh,
the
yeah.
board. I've done it. And that like they'll be like
Yeah.
4, 1, 8. I'm like, holy cow. When we are regulated, we're now oscillating, right? So that same day happened and it was still shitty no matter what. And we kind of drove down because like that's just a crap day. And then guess what? Our brains are like, yeah, but you're okay. And we can oscillate that back up,
You don't
right?
go as deep.
Yeah, and you don't
So
flatline at the bottom. You don't unpack
Yeah.
your bags there.
You're absolutely right. It's funny. We just had the 40th anniversary of the bombing of Beirut. And this
Yeah,
year, that's 40 years, we lost 2 to suicide. 20 years since the Battle of
20
Fallujah.
years.
So far this year, we've lost 12 to suicide. That's 20 years later.
I know 4 off the top of my head. I mean that, it was so funny because it hit me one day. I was talking to somebody, and I don't know what the conversation was, but I said, "Well, how many do you know?" And they're like 2. And as soon as he said, I said 4, and then I went, "Oh my God!" And then I was writing a blog at the time, and I was just really jaw dropped. And then it made me think, like, I bet we all do. I bet we could all, if we don't know them directly, we know somebody that knows them, or we know them indirectly. I mean, that's
We need to do better.
insane. Right. And we need to do better. Right. But we don't need to be screaming and shouting and just lambasting people. We really need to pull the resources together and say, hey, there's a gap. Let's start thinking out of the box. And I think what has happened over the years is that we've had these big center hubs not being willing to think out of the box. And then these smaller areas are like, fine, don't. We're going to. So places like you with Peak Neuro and finding neurofeedback and doing all these things and EMDR and equine therapy and HBOT and ibogaine. All these little places are like, fine, don't. We're going to try this. We don't care. We're going to try. And then something starts to take hold, and then the big places go, wait. You know, and so if we don't start, who's going to, right?
Well, you know, that's a great point. And I would love to get to a point where we're not doing it in spite of the system. We're doing it because of the system.
Right, exactly.
That's a systemic change we're all responsible for.
Yeah. And I welcome the big people to come ask the questions, and it's okay to be a skeptic. I think we'd be remiss not to be a healthy skeptic. I mean, when we started neurofeedback with my son, my husband's like, oh my God, what woo-woo shit are you doing now? Because it was not cheap. And he thought I was a nutball. And I was like, no, we're going to try this. 3 sessions in, my child, he was 8 at the time, could not clean his room. Like, you'd walk in and he'd be playing with a car and have one foot in his shorts and you know, just a whole mess. And 3 sessions later, he cleaned his room in 30 minutes. And my husband's like, I'm going, what is this crap? Like that. Yeah. And the neurofeedback guy was like, we will tell you fill our gaps because we have to have that. Right. So it's all welcome. We just don't need to bash each other. We just need to do this right. You know? So,
Amen.
So on that note, Tony, I am so happy we had this conversation. I was looking forward to it. It was a great ending to the week. The week was rough, and this literally just put a smile on my face because I got to talk nerdy with you in a productive fashion here. So do you have any last thoughts, like anything you want to impart to the audience?
Here, just one thing. Wherever you are, however you feel, you're not broken. You're not broken at all. That's it.
That's right.
If you don't like where you're at, it can change. That's the most important thing. You know, it's funny. It's almost 30 years that I wasn't even aware of how badly that my service in the military affected me. I just didn't even think about it. I was too busy being successful and running companies and making money and doing that kind of thing. And underneath it all, something was wrong. And like I said, it was transformational for me. And trust me, you may listen to this podcast, think I'm some kind of nerd or smart guy. I'm just a former Marine sergeant who got tired of getting in bar fights into my 50s. And better for you if you can solve it earlier in your life. I really wish I would have known about this years ago. My daughter is 29 years old as a therapist, and I've had her use it because, you know, again, going through a divorce is tough on kids.
Yeah.
Wherever you are, you're not broken. You just need a little help. That's all.
Yeah, you need to make those pathways optimal, you know, and that's what you're doing. That's how I look at it. It's like, it's just not the best pathway. Like you're on the wrong path. Your brain's on the wrong path, right? So like, let's give it a better path, and we can help get it over there and keep it over there. And that's
Amen.
That's really the goal. So, all right.
Well, thank you again for having me.
Oh, absolutely. It was a phenomenal conversation. Like really long podcast.
I know. I noticed that too.
Oh, well, we're going long, but honestly, I am more about good information. And if it's good and it's flowing, I don't ever like to stop it. So I'm sure Cindy will be like, oh Lord, here she goes. But it is what it is. And it was really good. And I am so appreciative. So audience, you know, my last thoughts is the same that I've said 1,000 times. You are not responsible for your trauma. You are responsible for your healing. And this is a modality, and there's places to start with it, you know, and if you're not sure what to do, literally just email us. You can email us at cominghomewell.com. They get all the emails to me. They do not hesitate. And, you know, Tony has said, if you're curious about more info, studies at peakneuro.com. You can email them directly. And we're going to have all this information on the show notes. So you can go to podcast.co, look at the show notes, and it's all there. Like, we do all this for you. It's that important. It really is that important. So from all of us here at Beyond the Front Line and our parent podcast, Coming Home Well, we want you guys to share this information. I know this one got a little nerdy, but share it with your nerdy friends and share it with your not nerdy friends. Everybody will learn something from it. So get out there and share this information. We want to get it out far and wide. So from all of us here to all of you, we hope you have an awesome week.
Thanks for listening to Beyond the Front Line, a podcast of Coming Home Well. Join us every other Wednesday. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. Thanks again. And until all are home and all are well.